All right. We're trying this again. Ladies and welcome back. There's some work. That's all I gotta say, y'all. It's not for the faint at heart. Greetings and welcome back once again. If you're new, click the subscribe button. Solonomic Samuna Israel. You get a lot of stuff here. A lot of soul food, things to make you think, feed stuff. So definitely feel free to share, like, and subscribe and all that good stuff. There is an article some days I'll be like, whoop, and then some days I'll be leveling off. But I came across this article while I'm waiting for something to finish. U.S. city to pay reparations to African American community with tax. You ready for this? On reparations to African American community with tax on Mary Jane. This is from the Telegraph, but it was rebroadcasted. Good evening, Douglas. What's going on? Rebroadcasted on Yahoo News, and this was released yesterday. Y'all ready? So they're gonna remember all last year, earlier this year, it's like get the bag, cut the check, and it went into the presidential race for the presidential election and all that stuff. And so here goes an article. They're gonna pay reparations. A lot of people ask the question, how? Well, this particular community or city is going to tell you how they propose to pay. You ready? A city in Illinois has announced it will create a reparations fund for its African American community through a new tax on marijuana sales. Recreational use of the drug will become legal in the state from January, and officials in Evanston, which is 12 miles north of Chicago, have voted to approve a 3% tax on the sales to fund a local to fund a local reparations program. Where are my glasses anyway? I got this light on and I'm over here, like the computer's like a little bit far, so if I stumble, you already know what it is. So they're like, ooh, stumble, you already know what it is. So they're like, ooh, marijuana is about to be legal. You know what? You know what we should do? We should tax it and then put it in a fund. The tax is expected to generate 300,000. No, my bad. Yo, let a baby pass my glasses. Shy? Yes, ma'am. Pass my glasses, please. 500,000 to 750,000 annually for a reparations fund, which will be capped at 10 million over the next 10 years. So they were like, "Oh, you know what? Do the numbers. This is how much we think it's gonna bring in, and we're gonna cap it at 10 million. Remember, this is just one city called Evanston, and we're gonna cap it at 10 million. Remember, this is just one city called Evanston. They say it's out. Thank you. Go ahead and put on my glasses now, y'all. So I ain't got to be, Hold on. I need some elderberry tea. All right, there we go. Bomb. We in the money now. The tax is expected to generate between 500,000 and 750 annually for the reparations fund, which will be capped at 10,000 over the next 10 years. The city's lawmakers will meet next week to determine exactly how the fund will be distributed. But one idea being proposed is for the money to go towards things like skill training or financial assistance for down payments on a home in the area. The fund will be available to all of the city's black residents, rather than merely those who can prove they had an ancestor who was enslaved. I know some people not going to be too pleased with this. As long as they can meet certain residency criteria. So this whole conversation, this ADOS versus everybody conversation, this particular city has been doing what they're doing, and now they're like, they're not going to be able, they don't need to prove that they had an ancestor enslaved. They just melanated resident who lives in, what's the name of the city? Ooh, 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 ooh. The name of the city is Evanston. It says the move comes amid a renewed national debate over whether the federal government should pay reparations to descendants of former slaves. I'm going to go click on that renewed and see what article that is, but let's finish reading this first. This summer, the House of Representatives held a hearing on the bill, which would establish a commission to study how a restitution program would work. And several Democratic presidential candidates have indicated their support for the idea. Did anybody see that hearing? And I was wondering, why does Danny Glover look like he was sleeping? Like he kept, I don't know. That's another story. I don't think I came in and spoke about that, but I had questions about why Danny looked like he was asleep. However, polling suggests the majority of the American public opposes monetary reparations, while President Donald Trump and other senior Republicans have publicly criticized the idea. Robin Simmons, the alderman who proposed the reparations bill, said the hope was to, quote, implement funding to directly invest in Black Evanston, end quote. Ms. Simmons said the source of the reparation fund was fitting, given the federal government's war on drugs campaign disproportionately affected African Americans for several decades. Well, isn't I got? Let me just keep reading because I'm thinking like you gonna tax it. What percentage of the city is melanated? Who's being taxed here to pay for the reparations? Like, so I have questions, but I'll continue. That'll like require me to do more footwork right now. African Americans accounted for 71% of those arrested for marijuana possession in Evanston during the past 3 years. A trend which mirrors the national picture. Ms. Simmons added that the reparations plan will also help African Americans who have been priced out of the city by high property taxes and racially biased lending practices. U.S. Census figures show Evanston's Black population fell from around 22.5. Oh, see, they knew what I was thinking because they came and gave me some stat. Thank you. Okay, demographics. Fell from around 22.5% in 2000 to under 17% in 2017. So they went ahead and moved on out. This reparations fund is something radical to preserve the Black population and let the Black community know that we see the flight, Ms. Emmons told the Washington Post. However, not all of the city's lawmakers support the measure. Alderman Thomas Seferinden voted against the proposal, arguing more details was needed on how the funding would be dispensed. In a town full of financial needs and obligations, I believe it's a bad policy to dedicate tax revenue from a particular source in unknown annual amounts to propose that to a today's one of the days, to a purpose that has yet to be determined, he said in a message to his constituents. Ms. Simmons says she wants the reparations to be distributed as direct payments to Black residents rather than another diversity policy. City officials and national reparations advocates will decide on the details of the program at a town hall meeting December the 11th. So if you are in this area, this is your spot. They're about to have a town hall meeting next week on this conversation of reparations. They're making it real, but there's a little cliffhanger in here. They say they're not going to go through all of the hoops to determine who is who. How do you feel about that? Let me click on this amid a renewed national debate thingy here. Let's see what they were quoting. How's everybody today? How do you feel about that? This was the Telegraph. Descendants of slave traders joined Democratic candidates' call for reparations. Let's see when this was, shall we? This was summertime. This was August 2019. How many people seen this? I didn't. Let me see. Marianne Williamson, novelist. Da. We need some deep truth telling. She told the audience. In Detroit, she outlined her bold plan for tackling the issue, up to $500 billion. So this particular city is taking it in their own hands and not necessarily waiting for. Oh, the Telegraph is hating on the kid. You have to subscribe. Hold on, let me see. Oh, one article a week. Seriously, the Telegraph. Okay, the Telegraph. She traced along today's economic gap between Black and white communities in America to a great injustice that has never been dealt with. The fact that there were 250 years of slavery. Okay, and then they cut me off because the Telegraph is hating. But yeah, that was the article they referenced here. So what are your thoughts on that? They're talking about reparations. The conversation is like, let reparations be spoken about. It is. And how are you going to go about, the commission was the commission to study reparations. And this particular city is saying, hey, we're going to take action. Yet one of the people in the city is like, yeah, you're taking action, but where is it going? But for what? How, as long as John Conyers was putting forth the initiative, it couldn't get off the ground. So you didn't even want to study it so that you knew where it was going. And now somebody's saying, you know what, forget that. We're just gonna start collecting. Oh, where's it going? It's cold here, y'all, by the way. If y'all see me with extra clothing on, it's a little bit chilly here in the let me go see some of the reactions here in the comment section of this Yahoo News article. How's everybody doing today? Okay, I'm gonna read some of this here. Some of the comments, since you guys, one of the comments, somebody named Saberwolf. The fund will be available to all of the city's black residents rather than merely those who can prove they had ancestors who was enslaved, as long as they can meet certain residency criteria, end quote. And this is where I have a problem with the entire program. I'm honestly not bothered much by the idea of using recreational drug sales tax to fund reparations for the descendants of slaves. But if they aren't willing to put any of that funding towards ancestral research, establishing guidelines for who qualify and how much, and have mostly already decided it'll be half-thought community outreach programs distributed based almost entirely on applicants' perceived skin tone without them having much real say at all, I strongly oppose this. It's essentially a GoFundMe scam using taxpayer dollars at this point. Woo! That was okay. He said it was a GoFundMe scam.
Who's him?
You said, Dude said that hearing was a joke. Danny is supposed to show up in Evanston to lead the charge. He is? He is? Didn't know that. I mean, did you see how Danny Glover, like, look like he's sleeping? Ta-Nehisi, he's over there talking, he getting it in. The other guy's talking and getting it in. And then Danny just pop up out the... I'm like, Danny, is Danny sleeping? What's going on here? Jason says, see, be careful what you ask for. So this person, Saberwolf, over here is a bit upset with the whole discussion. Did I drop off or something? Let me know if I dropped off. He's upset because the work, what the people are saying is, I made reference to this a long time ago in one of my many discussions. And it's like picking up the bread in the bakery section of the supermarket, but getting all the way to the checkout aisle and realizing you don't want the bread anymore. How many people, after you've picked up the bread way across the supermarket or way across the Walmart or Target, wherever you are, you picked it up way across. How many people, right by a show of your hands, are going to walk all the way back to the point of which you actually picked up the bread to put the bread back? What's happening, what we're seeing, and he seemed to be out of it at the hearing. He was out of it at the hearing. This is going to be interesting. I know there's going to be a whole lot of videos on YouTube, but what happened right after the people got the benefit out of slavery and they paid, oh, he's going to come to the town hall meeting. Okay, we got to keep an eye on this. They paid, what we're not realizing is this. There was a lot of stuff that transpired that the lower rung of people wasn't privy to. Like, so a lot of people are talking about CARICOM and what's going on there. When you look at what happened with the British was paid. There was reparations paid. It was paid to the slave masters. This thing's kind of bright, y'all. I'm sorry. Y'all can see me again. Oh, it's kind of bright. Ooh. Can we turn this down? Who's in there? It was paid to the slave masters, right? Per how many heads of slaves they had, this, that, and the third. So they were trying to compensate the slave masters so that they wouldn't kick up so much when they came to end slavery. It's the same way when they promised the 40 acres and the mule. They gave it over for about 2.5 seconds and then snatched it back. Okay? So now down the line, they're like, we don't owe you nothing. And then you're like, well, you brought us over here. We didn't ask you to. And now we're here. You robbed us. And then they went along as so long as they could. And now here we are. And it's like, okay, you won't be quiet about this. Okay, we're not going to take you back because that's too far. And we're not going to do all of this. This is what it appears to be. All of this extracurricular activity you want us to do. You want us to identify who you are. And they're like, we're not trying to do all of that. So I understand what Sable Wolf is saying in this particular response, but the reality is they just dropped it, and like, I don't want anything to do with it. And the reality is also that even President, I believe it was Jefferson and others, knew that if you allow the melanated people to stay amongst those who oppress them here in this country, it would be a problem. And so therein lies another problem, because over the years it was like, okay, go to Sierra Leone, okay, go to Liberia, okay, you need to go. And the people were like, no, we're not leaving. We're not leaving, we're not leaving, we're not leaving. And so they're like, you know what? I'm gonna treat you badly. I told you to go, I told you to pack up, I told you I was gonna put you on a boat. Some did, but many said we're not going anywhere because we have nowhere to go to. And going back to Liberia, the colonization programs, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and things of this nature, was akin to dropping the bread at the wrong spot in the supermarket. So it's like, it's so multifaceted, it's so complex that this Evanston community was like, yo, I'm not going through all of that. Here you go. And they even have a cap at $10 million, and then after that, 10 years, and after that, you can't say anything to me. I did what I could. And that's another thing to be careful for. They aren't trying to do that because that is true empowerment to know, yeah, that's a lot of work. Let's see here. So it's Dylan, somebody named Dylan is in his feelings. So when does the reparations fund expire exactly? Is this going to be an everlasting funnel of cash for a certain group of people based on skin color? It clearly said it was going to be for 10 years at a cap of $10 million. So I'm not sure that Dylan read the whole article. For those who are wondering, I'm over at Amazon News. This was an article put out yesterday by the Telegraph, and the title reads, right now I'm reading some of the very interesting opinionated comments. U.S. city to pay reparations to African American community with tax on marijuana sales. 3% tax on the marijuana sale that goes legal next the beginning of the year, January, and they're going to use that money to put in a fund that's going to help melanated people that live there. They don't have to have any proof of ancestry. ADOS is going to be really upset. FBA is going to be really upset, as if, I think this lady, Miss Simmons, they show a melanated woman. So I don't know who came up with the policy. They did collectively, but a lot of people are going to be upset at this point. Let's see here. Oh, they getting in their feelings here. Let me see. Okay, somebody says the city is exposing itself of being stripped of both state and federal funding. Using tax money in such a way is a violation of the 13th Amendment of every taxpayer, and would give grounds to a legal suit or claim against the government to end any obligation of paying taxes. Danny's just really not, really not. Dude, it's marijuana tax. What in the world? Let's see. Somebody said reparations will not make kids pay attention and focus on an education. Boop. Let me give a few more comments here. Let me know your comments and thoughts. Programs like this only perpetuate the hood mentality, where people take the position that no matter what they do, they will always be a victim, passed down from generation to generation. It's the reason discrimination persists. The key to rising out of poverty is education, not providing a select few a handout that they will become dependent upon. Give the tax money to the schools. What are your thoughts on that? Are they say education is what's going to rise them out of poverty, and that the tax money should go to the schools as opposed to the people in the community, because the people in the community is just going to perpetuate the hood mentality. What are your thoughts on that? Anybody? It's somebody says so. Basically, they want to give people money to buy homes. Pro tip: if you need government assistance to buy a home, you can't afford it and should look for other housing arrangements. So when they have certain loan programs for veterans and certain loan first-time home buyers program, that's not government helping you to buy a home in some way. No, no. Hey, what's up? Thank you for those who just joined us. They're trying to do that because that's true in power. Okay. Western education. They aren't mentioning changing the curriculum, but the truth. That's what I'm saying. They're like, ooh, more education. How's that gonna work out? So as we can tell, a lot of people are gonna be in their feelings. They're probably gonna be up in the it's like we don't owe you. Even though you clearly see that there's disadvantages, you clearly see where people are pushed out to the margins. You clearly see it, but it's gonna be too much like right. And then on the other side, if the people who are saying give it to me are not prepared to handle it, like you can get money for a down payment. In truth, you can get money for a down payment on a home. You can procure the home, right? You can go ahead and move up in the home, put your everything you need in the home. If you do not have the gainful employment to maintain that home, pay your property taxes, do all of this stuff like this, make sure you're up on your mortgage and your payments, then you can lose the home. So in one space, yes, they can be in the community, but if that community is going to be, because you're gonna have to be, you know what I'm saying? So what are you trying to drugs out the entire community? What's going on? That's gonna be a lot of chiefing. That's gonna be a lot of chiefing. Who thinks I'm bugging out? $10 million at 3%. What are they selling an ounce for? Who's gonna be the people who's gonna be running these marijuana dispensaries? Whose pockets are these monies gonna be going into? And who's going to be the buyer and who's gonna be the seller? That's a lot of ganja. $10 million at 3% tax. That's a lot of chiefing. Somebody gonna be high. Mm-mm-mm. Somebody named Justin says, in a city that has a subway, and I've never been there, I'm just hearing about this place, and transit system that is falling in disrepair, a homeless problem that is so bad that they are exporting their homeless to other cities and states by paying for a year of rent when abandoning them after leaving the care of them to the city or state they moved to. I think the money could be better spent. Is this even constitutional? You're taking taxpayers' funds and funding a program that eligibility is based upon race. Due process said they gonna go next door. They gonna be like, don't buy over here. It's going to them. This is a handout, so the government can pay everyone except the descendants. This is what they're saying. This is what they're saying, that everyone else can get, you can get this veteran, you can get this, this person over here. If you, oh, I'm sorry, I did something to you, then you could get this. Oh, you want to start a business? Here's some cash, peel off some stuff. You go do that, and then and Jason said it because it's a little bit of a different dynamic, talking about empowering those who you oppressed and empowering them in the same place you oppressed them. It's a little bit different. We gonna pay. That's what I first thought. Do when I saw it, I'm like, okay, so she's like, okay, you're gonna pay for your own reparations. which is an interesting concept. It's an interesting concept. Let me see if I see the woman. Let's look a little bit about this woman who they're quoting in the article, and then I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Miss Simmons, they gave her full name. So let me go ahead and. Alderman Robin Rue Simmons. She's a melanated sister here. She got braids, so she really not caring what they saying. Robin Rue Simmons. This thing is kind of in my way a little bit. But is the question here? Then there lies the question: is the concern the reparations, or who is giving the reparations? Like if they're saying reparations by the hook or the crook, you're gonna get this money. Will that still be satisfactory, or will it be dissatisfactory because who the person who or the people group who offended are not giving the reparations? Hmm? Because they're saying no, let them. I'm not done, and I'm on live. Robin Rue Simmons. Let me see here. Let's see who she is. Just get another one. Sit down, please. Robin Rue Simmons. Is that going to be satisfactory? Because they're saying in the same way you don't know fully who was the descendant of the slave, they're saying they don't know who. If I turn this light off, because it's let me see something. Yeah, we're gonna have to do that because that light was like it was blasting me in the eye. They're saying they don't know who. I'm still on the thing here. Who is the descendants of the. They don't know who is the descendants of the slave master. This is so then they're like taxpayers is gonna be paying even if they just came from overseas, or hold on one second, please. So this is I think this is where it becomes hairy in practicality versus concept. Right now we have a theory. This is what you can do, but when it boils down to it, you won't have reparations for a very, 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 very long time. Robin Rue Simmons. So mixed and anyone with melanin can get a check. This is basically that's what I read. I could be wrong, but that's what I read. This is reminiscent of how we get the $5 Indians. This is what I read. That any melanated person in that community, Evanston, in Illinois, can benefit from what you call it, because it's just that city. Sarai says anyone who really wants to know if they are true descendants can find out. Okay, but who wants to know? Because remember, you have one side to say you owe me, and the other side says this is who owed me. So if you're bringing two parties to court, one person says I went through the paperwork, I went through the lineage check, and I see that my answer is such and such and such. Wouldn't the other side have to prove that their ancestors also were the ones who oppressed? If one person comes with the data and the other person doesn't come with the data, how are you sure that it's this particular person that owes you? And how many Europeans are going to go through their lineage, although some have, to say, yes, I have an ancestor who did such and yes, I elect to pay you. How many are going to do that? So this particular city is like, forget all of it. We just gonna bypass all of that and done the conversation and be one of the first in the country to be like, we did it. I was trying to read more about her here. Let's see here. I wanted to know and find out for our family. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I did too. I found out a lot of interesting stuff. And some people are not necessarily going to go on that journey. Some people, even melanated people, they want to just show up and be like, believe me, and cut the check. I'm just trying to see a little bit of something here. Alderman Robin Rue Simmons told her colleagues Monday night that the thousands of local government officials at last week's National League of City meetings, quote, were in awe of us, end quote, when members of Evanston delegation described the racial reparations program City Council now has adopted. The program given final approval Monday night, so it's approved, calls for devoting up to $10 million to be collected from the 3% city tax on recreational cannabis sales to programs intended to compensate for redlining and other government and private sector activities that discriminated against blacks. In addition, voluntary contributions will be solicited for the fund set up under the program. How the funds will be dispersed remains to be determined. Alderman Ann Rainey, 8th Ward, who also attended the NLC meeting in San Antonio, said she didn't hear of even one city that was doing anything along these lines. There's a lot of talk of equity and diversity, but nobody was talking about reparations except for us, Rainey added. Ooh, Rainey got in there. They said Alderman Peter Braithwaite, 2nd Ward, said he was really excited by the vote and noted that the judge Lionel Jean-Baptiste, his predecessor as 2nd Ward Alderman, had been pushing for reparations program as early as 2002. So we have people who just jumping on the scene like, aha, we made it happen. And people planted the seed a long, long, long time ago. How much more time is on that? That we weren't seeing and we weren't exposed to, and people were putting in the work. This particular alderman was putting
6 minutes.
6?
36.
36. Okay. As long as 2002. It says addressing Ruth Simmons Braithwaite says Jean Baptiste told him, quote, he lacked your fortitude, end quote, to see the project through. This name is jacking me up. Braithwaite said the program would be very special for Evanston and would have a ripple effect that should create change across the nation. Alderman Tom Suffren, 6th Ward, cast the only vote against the measure. He made no statement indicating the reason for his vote, but he also cast vote against the city library property tax levies and the city budget Monday night. I want to show you guys what the guy who said no to it. Let me just turn the camera around real quick. Let me show you what he looks like. Wait, hold on. That's his face right there. And why did they catch him on camera looking like that? This is Tom Suffren, is the only one who cast the vote against the measure. So what I'm reading from right here is, his face is tight. This is Robin Rue Simmons. So this is our Evanston Now. So this is their local paper here. And this came out first, and then I was reading from this article right here. Yeah, his face is like, I'm not trying to get them Negroes nothing. Here it is. U.S. city to pay reparations to community with tax on marijuana sales. So here we go. They was having a whole conversation. They was getting down with the get down. And this is the sister here that they're saying is who's pushing for this discussion. And so, there you go. Yeah, I remember that. It's been rumbling for a minute, It's been rumbling for a minute. So there we go. That's the article right there. What are your thoughts? And I was reading because I just you find the mind of people in the comment section. And one of the things that I find, there goes the hood mentality comment right here. But let me see here. Let's see what we got going on here. How many euros are going to claim one black ancestor and ask for their check like Jason? Like Rachel Dolezal. You see where it's going to get sticky now? It kind of, one part that I think they have a safety mechanism is that you have to be in that city and a resident in that city. I think that's a safety mechanism for them. The other side is that since such time, since we're talking about present day and the evolution of family does not stop, then one would have to say if people went on to mix their lineages, then that person who may look like a Rasul Dolezal can still claim technically. Because I forgot which one is it? President Jefferson, not Thomas Jefferson, where he had an entire melanated side of family, an entire don't get me to looking stuff up, and an entire black side of family, and they actually came together. Hold on, so they can, if they lived in Evanston, they could show up and get the check. Hold on 1 second. Let's see here. Black and white family of Thomas. I just want to make sure, because I was looking. I think they wrote a book or something. Yeah, here it is. Here go the book right here. See, I don't be tripping. Gonna be doing that research, y'all. There's a book they wrote. This is the name of the book right here. I never copped it, but I did have my eyes on it. So they could actually, if they lived in Evanston, they could show up. This book is called Jefferson's Children, The Story of One American Family. Right? And these are the people. So it gets very sticky. Like what is the cutoff? You know what I'm saying? Because you did have this intermingling and mixing. I mean, so it does get very sticky. Now, let me see what else is going on here. Hold on. Okay. Many run into a 1870 brick wall, but with a little effort, you can find the slave owners as well. I mean, and some people run into a dead end because the history is so interwoven that you may in Louisiana, or you're a Creole in Louisiana, before Louisiana purchased, Louisiana belonged to the French, right? You get to a certain point, you're not going to find any more here because your history would be in Haiti. When a lot of the Haitian aristocrats and those who had money and well-to-do, when they came over from Haiti and settled in Louisiana, you're not necessarily going to find, but you know what I'm saying? You're not going to find what you're looking for because it gets a little crazy. It takes some work. It takes some work. It's not as easy. People will be sitting here for the next 10 years trying to figure out, what's going on. That's why the government as a whole, I pay taxes for wars. I don't want to be funny, so the government should pay me with taxes. Very interesting. Very interesting. The UN, we read that. You can't collect without a plan for disbursement. Got to get that straight first. I hope it works out for them, but having an egg with no budget can lead to corruption. Yeah, dude was big mad. Did you call him Dirty Jefferson? Dirty J? I'm wrong. Y'all wrong for that. I call him Dirty J. The Hemmings family. I catch you on the replay, Indy. Yeah. So it could get sticky. Like I said, I did this website here named I think it's named Family. I think. No, Family Tree? No. Now, what's the name of it? It's not My Heritage. I think it's Family Tree. I'm going to tell you right now if this is it. Nah, that's not it. I can't remember right now. I have to come back and give you the information. But there's one site that I was using. Ancestry. No, it's not Ancestry. Okay, I'm not even going to just keep... Hold on, let me see. Y'all know I don't like when I can't remember stuff. Family Search. This is it. Is this it? I'm going to tell you right now. Yeah, this is it. Right here, Family Search. Like if you didn't take any DNA yet, but you do have family name, if you have maiden names, if you have locations, you can put it in, and it's not just the US, it's all over. You can put it in, and a lot of the birth records were scanned. A lot of the birth records, I'll tell you who, it will be our grandparents' generation. Because if I look for, and the ones that have already moved on, grandparents and great grandparents. So on this site, I was able to locate my great grandparents, great grandparents, in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, through birth records, through marriage records, and things of that nature. So this, you'll actually be able to pull it up and see their signature or see what, and it helps if you know what town, because migration, they may be in Kingston, but they may never have originated Kingston. They may have been in Westmoreland. They may have been in, you know what I mean? So the more information that you could collect, it helps with the searching. And then you begin to put the pieces together. You talk to people who are still alive. You get the information. And then if they don't see it here and it's here in America, you may go to the town. You may go to the records. Like, it's going to be work. You got to put in work. And I think more than the money, it's like putting a piece of the puzzle together for yourself, of like just knowing who you are. You know what I mean? Because some people won't be motivated to do this if there wasn't any bag involved. But I think for the healing process and the restoration process, that this is helpful, just to see my great grandmother's signature, or what I actually found out that was wild. I'll tell you what I found out that was wild, and then I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up. What I found out that was wild. I've always been that person. And I was looking at through my great grandmother's, because it would be my grandmother's mother. So my great grandmother, I found her. I got confirmation, cross reference, all that. And she had a daughter. And the daughter passed early, like a few months old, like 3 months, I think. Because I saw a birth certificate and a death certificate. When I look, good. I mean, it's just wild. I'm just saying it was a coincidence, as some would say. When I look, this was like early 1900s. Like the early 1900s. So when I look, good, what did I see? The same exact birth date as mine, which is weird. I was just like a little weirded out. I was like, what? And this person didn't, you know what I'm saying? They didn't actualize for whatever. I forgot what I have it on my computer, but the cause of passing. And I'm just saying that, and you read about family trauma, my book is in the car, and you read about revisited energies, and you read about things that surround the family. So when you feel like, oh man, I gotta move, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, and you're thinking it's you, not realizing that you may have inherited some energy from prior generations. So for me, it brought a lot of clarity just in seeing that, but in other things as to why I came moving the way I move. And like I said, for others, it can be helpful so that you can understand you. You're not you just because you jumped on the scene and like, oh yeah, this is me, this is all me. No. And for those who are just joining us and may be new and don't know what I'm talking about, it didn't start with you. We did about, if you haven't watched those videos, I think we did like, 3 or 4 of those videos. We still have some more chapters to go, but it didn't start with you, and it's talking about family energy that you inherit and incorporates in your walk. And a lot of times it can hinder you from elevating because you don't realize that you keep hitting this wall because it's something that you need to heal from. So with that said, yep. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts and concerns and questions below. And we'll come back and have more of this discussion. It was an interesting find. It was interesting. All right, 1. Oh, wait. See, my bad. I don't for some reason, let me just read it. Yes, that happened to me with the Louisiana Purchase. My people were from the Bastrop, French, Arkansas. Oh, wow. Family search is good. My tribe bloodline has been on these and has established government before any pale skin arrived. Matter of fact, many are still repeating lies from the book of lies that weren't burnt. They never enslaved our ancestors. Okay. Indigenous, we could have that discussion. We could have that discussion. Y'all know how I feel about that. Interesting guest. I have to subscribe to your channel too. We could have that discussion because you have some out here who are saying they were never enslaved. There is too much. I told y'all I was leaving now, but hold on. There is too much information out in these streets for us to still subscribe to the thought process that melanated people were not enslaved. Now, you know what? Thank you. You just reminded me something. I was, tell me how much time I have on that, please. I'm waiting for this.
23 minutes.
All right, we got 23 minutes, y'all. Since that comment just came through, and I did say I was gonna go, but y'all know this enlivens me. I was gonna save this, but I was looking at a documentary, and I wanted to go over this real quickly. But since I have 23 minutes, hopefully indigenous didn't go away. Years ago, I heard this thought the slave trade never happened, this, that, and the third, this, that, and the third. And I'm like, where is this coming from? You know what I'm saying? Where is this coming from? And after time and time and time passed, I came to find out that is this one of these sources is this guy on YouTube called Cal what's his name? Cab Calloway is his name. And I'm looking at some of what he's saying, and I'm like, what what is he saying? So some of this information, it's a level of denial. It's a level of denial, lumping everybody together and saying one monolithic group of melanated people. I don't agree with that. And so there's so many different moving parts to this discussion. Anytime I see like this broad brushing of like what indigenous just said, it makes me like, come on now, let's go into this now, y'all. Let's have this conversation. I'm gonna show you my screen real quick. So Sarai said, I was able to be connected with the tribe, and one of the first women in my family was stolen from Africa. You see this? That's me looking at the babies. Many Native Americans enslaved our people as well, truth be told. Thank you, Due Process. And that's what I want to show y'all at another time. So since I got 23 minutes, how about we do it now? I'm waiting for my product to finish here before I go. So I was looking over this the other day, and since we got a little bit of time, let's hit it. Just like what Due Process just spoke about, okay? This is John Horse. How many people heard about John Horse? It's a lot, so I'm not going to go through it all today, but we're going to do a little overview. How many people are familiar with or have heard about John Horse? I told you guys that before, and I didn't come back with it because there's so much going on, but I have a book that I was reading about the slave rebellions and where they took place and all of the stuff like this. So this is Rebellion, John Horse and the Black Seminoles, the first black rebels to beat American slavery, right? It's a lot here, so we're not going to, hold on. We're going to do a story synopsis, okay? The slave rebellion, the country tried to forget. This was between 1835 and 1838 because a lot of people say they're indigenous, and I got Indian in my family. That's what we're going to call this series. I got Indian in my family, right? And what those implications were, and if it means more than just good here. You know what I mean? Because people like, I got Indian in my family referring to good here. Was this something that people said because it had other implications? Participants this was Central Florida. Participants was 385 to 465 slaves and between 500 and 800 black Seminoles. The outcome was where did I put my glasses? Sorry. The outcome was in 1838, the U.S. Army allowed 500 blacks, so-called blacks, to move west with Seminole Indians. Half received promises of freedom and the only emancipation of rebellious blacks in the U.S. before the Civil War. And they ended up going down into Mexico. So we're going to take a look at this. It talks about the slave rebellion, the country tried to forget. It goes into information about the slave rebellion. Why did America forget this slave rebellion? It has story synopsis, the quest for freedom that changed American history, the origins of black Seminoles. We're going to go through this because I find it to be a great contribution to the discussion. rebel blocks in the southern U.S. So this is, the name of the website is johnhorse.com. Johnhorse.com speaks about whether or not melanated people were enslaved, whether there was a difference between people who came from the continent, whether there was a difference between people who came from the continent, like we see indigenous was saying, that didn't just happen, that didn't really happen. Was there a difference between indigenous people who were here and those who came from the continent, were dragged from the continent? Okay? Please stop. Then they have picture tours here. You have the trail narrative. They talk about the Trail of Tears, but they also talk about the other journey that they went up through, and they came down and they came back and ended up and settled in Mexico. Talks about the exile, talks about freedom. So the name of this site is johnhorse.com. And when I have more and talk about it. And again, for those who don't think that people were enslaved here and that people always been here and they fabricated the story, that is some Disney imagination. I don't even see, for those who have that theory, please help me to understand. I've been trying to understand it for years. What benefit would it be? Make up such a fanciful tale and have so much paraphernalia from that time period. Why, if the melanated body from the continent is not the same as the indigenous body that was here in this continent, then why is it that one set of people was allowed to, quote, be sovereign and the other set of people was enslaved, if they were in fact the same people? I just got so many questions with that. But oftentimes I find that, the conversation starts and then, it just tapers off. So if you want to catch up on this before we actually go into it, again, it's named johnhorse.com. It talks about the rebellion. It talks about the relationship between the melanated person, African who run away in Florida when it was still Spanish territory, and the native Indian who was here. So with that said, I know I got a little excited at the end part there, but the dude says having Indian in your family is romanticized. However, majority of cases were more nefarious. Yay, they're gonna say, bring it out, sister. Where are you getting this from? And this is one of the things where we can, go back over this history between the Indian, the Native American, and the melanated person. Were they held as slaves? Did they allow them to dwell amongst them? What was the relationship like? All of these things that we tend to skip over when we just make these blaring generalized statements. So with that said, again, I was wanting to come to this, but here you go, John Horse. My bad. That's my work I was over here doing. FamilySearch.com. Oh, sorry, FamilySearch.org. If you're curious, that's how I started. I was just like, even though I talked to my family, I was just like, yeah, let me see something real quick, And then I'm like, I started finding, and I'm like, whoa, okay. Start jotting down names and start cross-referencing stories, and then, a story, you start to see it come together. And it's really, I didn't give anybody my DNA, you know what I mean? But I was able to find a paper trail. So with that said, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Yeah, we'll come back and have more conversations. If you have questions, feel free to, drop them in the box below. If you have any topics that you would like to discuss, feel free to drop that in the box below. All right, everybody have a blessed night. Ah, man, every time I say I'm going to go and look at the comment, research the real Trail of Tears and see how many of our ancestors died as well as their slave owners, the Native Americans. I went to the Museum of the St. Louis Arch and it talks so much about Native American oppression and how it mixed with slavery. Well, well. It has been dealing with these cases for decades and they want no parts of us. All right, then. All right, y'all. I always thank you guys for putting your thoughts in because each one teach one. So definitely, we'll come back and have more discussion on this here matters in 13 minutes. Yeah. So we're running late today, but we're gonna go ahead and go because it's cold out in these Floridian parts. We don't do this level of cold in Florida, man. It's just wrong. It's wrong. But we're gonna hang in there. Y'all bundled up. All right then.